Well, blimey, haven't done one of these in a while. Yes, it's time for a proper vlog. Basically, you may remember how I ranted on about the new generation's Rhine packs the other week. And it just sort of got me thinking, what is with figures today? Where are we going down the road of quality? And basically, the thing that really sort of brought this to my own attention is the fact that I was feeling about with FOC's Shockwave here, and I was just sat there thinking, I like this thing a hell of a lot more than I do this thing. Why? What basis have I got to say that this is more desirable to me than this? Because it's odd, because this guy was my first of the new generation's figures last year. This guy is my first of the new ones for this year. And just sort of seems like, for some reason, is it nostalgia? I really like Shockwave more. But, objectively, he's a far worse figure. He isn't as posable as Orion Pax. He isn't as filled out or complex. He's not engineered to the same sort of standard. You could say that he hasn't got as much paint, maybe. All in all, this is a more basic figure than what is coming out today. But why do I like it more? I think part of it may be that when it came to the Fall of Cybertron figures, yes, they were cheap. Everyone complained about how cheap and small they were because it was a sudden sort of boom in your face. This is figures being cheaper than we've ever seen them before. But at the same time, they just felt really good. They felt really fun because they sort of, I don't know, the way that the engineering was condensed in a way, maybe. They didn't have any kibble. Transformations were quick. They feel sturdy and just really rough and tumble playable. This is something I'd love to hear your opinions on, of course. I'm trying to instigate a discussion. But I'm just trying to sort of explore these ideas for myself at the moment. Shockwave is one of the figures that I've rarely put down since I got it, and it's been like a year now. He's been stood on a shelf for most of that time, readily at hand to me, where I can just fiddle about with him, because there is something about this figure that I really do like. Maybe it's the translucenty purple stuff. Maybe it's the purple colour overall, nice silver, and just the weird sort of jaggedy shape. Or the fact that this is like the only classic Shockwave out there, and the light piping is amazing. But it's nowhere near as posable as Orion Pax. It's nowhere near as maybe characterful, because he is a bit of a sort of hollow robot, you know, there's not really a lot going on with him. But sitting there and comparing these two, I just felt like, what was it that made me instantly be really excited to have a Shockwave, to finally find one in the shop and buy it and say, yeah, I've got a new figure, oh, it's really good, I really like it. Even though it's a bit naff, but when I got Orion Pax, who is arguably of the same sort of status of, you know, a prestigious brand new figure that I should be really excited to have, I was just a bit like, meh. Why have I sort of grown to expect something different? Maybe it's because Beast Hunters, you know, all the mainline stuff this year has been so much more value for money, because when you spend 13 quid on this, you're not getting a really big chunky robot that fires missiles or has loads of stuff with him. You just get a pretty small guy and he's got a couple of basic accessories. Is the overhype canon to blame for all this? Was I really hyped to get IDW figures, and then when I actually saw them, be disappointed by them? Is that what's at play here? Is it because the Generations figures weren't really all that hyped? It was like, oh yeah, we're getting, you know, game designs, they're cool. But when it came to these, it was like, oh my god, comic figures, yes, finally! Maybe I wasn't sure what to expect with Shockwave. Maybe my expectations were too high for Orion Pax. How has the state of play changed in a year? And why should I now be looking at what are perfectly legitimately good new figures and thinking they're not as good as old ones, which are technically worse? So yeah, I'm bombarding you with some rhetoric here. I don't really know how to answer any of these questions. It's a bit of an odd thing. Maybe you've got some ideas of your own as to where Hasbro is sort of going with all this, because clearly, this is a step up from this. But somehow, I don't like it as much. What the hell is wrong with me? We're getting, super articulated figures as standard now that are based on designs that, I do like, I will identify with being a comic reader and all that, and I can't wait to see what else they bring out, because we're rumouredly getting a Rat Trap and a Night Beat, and it's like, I want to see how they do them. But all of that excitement is now tempered with the fact that if they're executed anything like this, then they're going to be a little bit lacklustre and a little bit not really what I wanted. I am hella excited at the idea of a new Nightbeat figure. Nightbeat is like one of the best G1 characters, and thanks to Simon Furman and all of that and all the IDW comics and stuff, I've wanted a figure of him for ages. But considering what these new moulds are like, when you consider, the sort of basicness of the new Bumblebee and the way they sort of muck that design up, and how small the Megatron is, and how Trail Cutter isn't really quite what he should be and ends up being an odd hodgepodge of styles, it makes me think, I wish I could be as excited for this forthcoming Nightbeat as I should be, and how excited as I was about this new Shockwave and these new figures coming out. But there's all the sort of corner cutting and odd design sort of tweaks and smudgings that Hasbro are doing with these comic figures to basically make them like normal classics figures that end up having a bit of bonus appeal to comic readers. What will they be like? What will the figures of, the later waves of this lot be like? How will they stack up? Because we're going to be getting a Beast Machine Tankor from them as well. I mean, what? I should be really excited about all this stuff, and I am, but at the same time I'm just thinking I shouldn't hold my breath, because they could end up being as lacklustre as this guy is, or as any of these are. I mean, I know I can't really say that. I don't have any of the others in hand, and I still really do want them. I still really want Trail Cutter and Megatron. I'm not so bothered about Bumblebee, but there's a little bit of, new figure prestige about him that might draw me to him if I saw one. Overall, I'm just waiting for later waves, I guess. When we saw all the reveals of like Skids and Waspinator and Starscream, those were just, they blew me away, and I was as excited as I was about this when I saw those. Properly stoked, and it's just disappointing me a bit to think that because I was disappointed with this, and I still don't know why I'm disappointed with this, that I'm going to be disappointed with these figures that I'm really, 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 truly, ecstatically excited about. And it's making me question, what is the nature of Transformers figures now? Because Hasbro are obviously, really, they are doing their best and making figures that are of appeal to literally anyone. I mean, when we've got generations, when we will look at this forthcoming line this time next year and see that in the line there has been plenty of G1 homages, plenty of obscure G1 homages like Scoop, Beast Wars homages, Beast Machines homages, Armada homages, it's excellent, really. It should be amazing, and it should end up being a slew of best figures we've had in such a long time. But the whole sort of quality rearrangement sort of stuff Hasbro is doing to cut corners and make things cheaper and not necessarily make them value for money, even though in the same year they can put out figures that are way more economically viable. It's just making me question stuff, especially with the whole sort of Cyberverse upgrading, upscaling stuff that we're going to get next year that looks truly awful, and I wish Hasbro had never done it. But they have a sort of good reason to do it, with attracting, younger kids to the brand, because there is no entry-level sort of Transformers around. It just makes me think, where is this all going? What is the toy line for Transformers 4 going to be like? Is it going to be another step down? and I really don't want it to be, because I'm excited for the return of movie figures as well. And I want to feel this level of excitement again. I want to feel like I've just bought myself my Fall of Cybertron Shockwave, finally finding one in a shop and going, yes! Whenever I buy any of these new figures that are to come, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. Simply because of the way that styles are changing, and I think Hasbro are raising expectations but not really delivering the goods to satisfy those expectations. So all in all, it's the work of the overhype cannon, exploding these things far into the distance where people go, oh my god, yes, I've got to get it, and then they finally get within arm's length of it, think, oh, yeah. I want to stay optimistic about all this, because that's the best way to do it. I mean, I stayed optimistic about Blitzwing up there when everyone said that, oh, it's really weird, I'm really disappointed by it, because I was really expecting it to be the perfect triple changer, and its arms go flappy and everything. And, you know, I think the best thing to do is really to try and start avoiding all of this sort of overhyped guff. Making your own decisions on figures probably leads to the best enjoyment of them. I've stopped watching reviews of new figures, well, mostly, because I want to be able to form my own opinions and not latch onto someone else's and think, oh, this isn't any good, why do I want it? And then, you know, it could put me off a perfectly good figure that I would love. And I really do like Blitzwing up there. But he does have his flaws, and I was disappointed when I got that out of the box and handled it and felt this isn't what I was expecting. This isn't the quality that I was sort of hoping for. But at the same time, counter sort of manding my whole argument of value for money not lying in the Generations line, the Voyagers for Generations are so much better than all of the Beast Hunters ones. You know, triple changes at that price point, getting 3 modes and then loads of accessories and gimmicks and firing missiles and swords and swapping faces and all of that for the same price. That's crazy. Maybe, here's the answer to my own question, maybe that's where all the money's gone for Generations. Maybe they poured it all into Springer and Blitzwing and Sandstorm, and then Rhinox, who's coming, who looks lovely. Maybe that's why they're sort of neglecting the deluxe class. Again, this is all rhetoric. I don't really know where I'm really going with this. I just want to say stuff and make it known, all of these different ideas and opinions I've had, and the simple fact that sometimes a bad figure can be really, really enjoyable, and other times a perfectly good one can leave you feeling like you've wasted your money. I mean, of course, those statements are exaggeration. Shockwave isn't bad, and I didn't waste my money on Orion packs. But when it comes to this sort of odd divide, you've sort of got to go down that route and blow things up to be able to look at them in more detail, if that makes any sense. Fall of Cybertron as a line, I loved it. The figures were cack, but I loved it. For some reason, they just, they're so satisfying. Maybe it's because it's just the new standard and I'm just enjoying them because they're new, you know. There's still that luster, that bit of sheen over them because they are a relatively new product, and it's good to play with new things because it makes you feel, yeah, I'm there, I'm with the in crowd, I'm flowing along that current of current stuff. I just hope that at the end of this IDW Spotlight line, whatever you want to call it, Thrilling 30, that I feel the same way. Because right now, while I had the biggest of hopes for this line, it looks like it may leave those in tatters, and I really don't want it to. Of course, this guy still has the luster of a new figure. That's why I like him, because he feels new and nice and shiny and good. But at the same time, of course, with everything I've said, I'm a bit disappointed with him. And I don't want to feel like that with Trailbreaker and Megatron and Hoist and Thundercracker and Waspilator and Skids and all of those. So I guess as a sort of final note, I'm just hoping that this is the prelude to a line which I can enjoy as much as I did for Cybertron. Because, yeah, these figures, they were basic, they were small, blah blah blah. A lot of people didn't like really what they were doing with this line. And I guess it was the sort of characters that the figures represent that drove it. Maybe it's because, you know, this is Shockwave. Maybe that's why I like it, because it's a fun new Shockwave figure. And Orion Pax isn't someone I'm really quite as familiar with. How do you feel about the current state of play with Generations figures? How do you feel about Hasbro putting all the money seemingly into the main line for kids, which is really, you know, where the money should go, attracting new fans, and sort of neglecting us older collectors by giving us dross like this? Yeah, I'm being a bit harsh. He's not that bad. But maybe I picked the worst of a relatively good bunch. I don't know yet. I guess hindsight is the big sort of clarifying factor here. I'll look back on this and say, what were you on about, mate? All the Generations figures are proper bow. I certainly want to be able to do that. And I guess the moral of the story is, don't let the overhyped cannon punch you in the face. Because that seems to have been what's happened here. Go steady, make your own opinions on figures, look at them properly and think, yeah, that's cool. Go on gut feeling and, you know, pick up a bad figure every now and then if you really, really want to. Because sometimes they turn out being a hell of a lot better than the ones that are supposed to be good.